Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Wellness Wednesdays. Today, we are going to talk about ways to be more likable. And I came up with this topic. It's funny because when I asked my children who they're hanging out with and, who some of their friends are, or maybe they're dating somebody new and we don't really know them that well, my first thing I ask them is, "Here, is she nice?" And I think I ask that all the time. And even with our friends, we have friends that we're really close to. And then we have people that I would call more of an acquaintance. It's probably not the person I would call to go out for supper or to come over and watch a game or to maybe even go on vacation with. But, sometimes we, hang out with certain people because our kids are in sports together and things like that. And, we like that person. But there's just something about our close friends that we like. And as I did a little bit of, kind of digging into this subject, I kind of thought back to some of our connections, as couples, Troy and I, and my kids and who they hang out with. And I kind of got to thinking, I think that we do business with people that we like. And I think people who are likable are more successful in their business. And I think it's because we like people. I think when you like people, you are more likable. So after doing a little bit of research on this, that's kind of the general consensus and just kind of a really good way to sum up how to be more likable is to like more people. All right, number 1, compliment others genuinely and often. And a compliment, I would suggest that you compliment them on a success. Let's say that the person next to you in your class maybe got a really great grade on the paper, or they did a great job on a project. So rather than saying, "Oh, I like your shoes," or "I like your bag," you can say, "Hey, you did a really, really great job on that presentation. I loved the PowerPoint that you used. I was really engaged," and things like that. So then it boosts them up from something that they've really worked hard for, maybe other than what they're just merely dressing or the way that they maybe style their hair. And it boosts a person's self-confidence, not just when you give them the compliment, but when they think back to that compliment, or they think back to that project that they did, or that time that they spent with you, or the next time they see you, you already have that common interest. So there's already that engagement, you already have that connection, simply because you chose to compliment somebody on, a quality of theirs, or, a mission, or something that they worked really hard for. So it boosts their self-confidence, but I think it also boosts yours. Number 2, ask more questions about others than you make statements about yourself. I know that sometimes this is really hard. We might be talking to somebody and we're excited to tell them about an experience or an interaction or something that we've had, but that's not really fun for the other person if that's all there is. Of course, a communication or a conversation is give and take, but just make sure that you're always asking more questions about them than you're making comments or statements about yourself. I think it develops a meaningful connection, and people love to talk about themselves. Number 3, assume that everyone has something to teach you. I love this one. We learn from people's stories when they tell of their successes or failures. I know this is true. We admire people who are successful, and not because of the house that they live in or the car that they drive. It isn't anything like that. They've done something that has worked. And a lot of times when somebody is successful, they like what they're doing. However, we don't always know about their failures. I think it's very, very seldom that somebody succeeds and is very successful the very first thing that they tried, or maybe the first attempt. So I think the one thing that I think it's very important to learn from people are their failures. And I think that failures are one of the biggest things to make us stronger. And we know that anybody who lifts weights know that we lift to failure because that's what makes us stronger. So every failure that somebody has, that can make us stronger just from learning their failures and, maybe what we could do to avoid that. Or it gives us confidence that if they had failures and they got through it and they're successful, we can do the same. So make sure that you always listen for maybe even a lesson, or just listen to what somebody's trying to teach you. Number 4, ask deeper questions. Get under the surface and ask questions that explain why the person is the way that he or she is. And a few examples are, what is the one thing that you would change about yourself? What is a dream you've never said out loud? If you could change anything about your past, what would it be? Do you usually follow your heart or your head? What do you see as your best character trait? What mistakes did you learn from? And even kind of fun, simple ones such as, what is your ideal weekend or your perfect vacation? Number 5, ask for advice. People love to feel helpful. I think it's human nature to be helpful. I think sometimes that does us more good than the person that we're helping. Number 6, plain and simple, stop complaining. Number 7, mirror body image and body language. This makes a person that you are interacting with feel at ease and feel heard. And I think if you, for example, if I'm in my office and somebody comes in to talk to me, if they remain standing, I'm going to stand up as well. And if they sit down, I'm going to remain seated. Or if they, are talking with their hands and making big movements and gestures, then I think sometimes we tend to do that also, rather than just sitting there with our arms crossed, just staring at them. So that's what it means to mirror their body language, is just to make them feel at ease, kind of mimic them, kind of copy them, not in a teasing form or, just to be goofy, but just to make them feel at ease. And again, it forms that connection there. Number 8, maintain eye contact. And let's let the other person know that you are engaged in the conversation that you are having, and you're not looking around the room wondering if there's a more exciting conversation happening that you wish that you could engage in. And I know that this is really hard, and I think we've all been there. We've been talking to that person where we think, oh my gosh, this is so boring. Or maybe the person has come up to us and there really wasn't any way to escape from the conversation. But I've also been on the other end where I don't know if maybe somebody had asked me something, or if we're just, in a general conversation, and I could see that person looking around the room. And I've been there and I know exactly what's happening. So, it makes us feel like we're not being heard, or, we're that person is maybe wanting to exit that conversation. And if that's the case, that's okay. So sometimes we just kind of finish up what we're saying and, make ourselves, we think, okay, I need to run and grab a glass of water or something, or say, hey, it was nice talking to you. Talk to you later. And that way, it kind of lets that person know that, maybe that conversation wasn't going anywhere and maybe you were both bored. Number 9, be confident. Self-confidence is a quality admired by all. And I think that confident people are generally interesting, well-educated, well-rounded. They don't complain. They help others. They take care of their health by eating right and exercising. They are not afraid to be wrong. In the right situation, they allow others to get all the credit. I'm going to elaborate on that one a little bit. Have you ever been working on a project? And let's say that it's a pretty big project and you've had months to do it. And let's say that you divided it up into 3 to 4 different people. Everybody had a certain job they were to do. And it's a couple weeks before the project is due. And there's one individual that didn't pull his or her weight. So you do it. And you turn in the assignment or the project, and that person who really didn't do a lot gets the credit. That's okay. That takes a really, really big person to do something like that. And I think we've been there. And whether or not that person would learn from that or not, it doesn't matter. but that really helps you. So I think that when you can give somebody credit, and not for a job that you've done or a job that he or she didn't do, but maybe if something good happened and you were a big part of that and maybe that wasn't seen by all, that's okay. It's okay. And again, that just makes you a better person. And I think a good comparison to this, or just a good kind of analogy or situation, is my son played basketball and he was pretty good. If he was sitting here next to me, he might not agree with that, but he really was good. He never made a lot of points, but he was really, really good on defense. Really good on defense. But the one thing I remember is he had a lot of assists. I can't tell you how many he had. I'm not even going to venture to guess because that'd be way off. But there was so many times in a game that I would watch him. I would watch him, defend, the other players. And then as soon as he got that ball, he was always dribbling and just waiting for that, passing back and forth and, just waiting for that kid to be open. And as soon as he was, pass it to the kid made the shot. So what do we remember? Whose picture is it? Whose number is it that goes up on the scoreboard? Well, it's the kid that shot the basket, of course, because he's the one that actually made the 2 points. But what we forget to give the people credit who helped get that ball back down to that end of the court and get it to the kid that was able to shoot the basket. And after watching my children do that, it makes me, I think I have a lot more interest in watching sports, and I watch for that. So sometimes we still give, credit to the person that made the points because that's what wins you the game, but it's everybody that helped you along the way. So be that person. Don't be afraid to be that person that kind of sits back and boosts somebody up enough that they're successful and they get the credit. It's okay. Number 10, be passionate and sympathetic. When you believe in something strongly, take a stand and don't be afraid to speak your mind. But remember, you don't have to argue, but stating your opinion in a mature manner will allow others to see your point of view and maybe allows you to see their point of view also. I think politics right now is something that we really probably shouldn't be talking about. And if we do, sometimes we could probably lose a friendship or it might end up in an argument. But my husband and I are on the same side. Not every married couple is, but we are. And I think it's interesting that we watch a particular news channel. But then I wonder sometimes if that's even fair because we don't have both sides. We're hearing one side and they're not bad-mouthing or bashing the other side, but we don't get both views. And I think that's really important to hear both sides and then make your opinion. Or even to realize that both people are right, but they're both equally wrong. I don't think one side is always right and one side is always wrong. I think that there's always something that we can learn from both sides. So I think, another characteristic of being likable is to be able to do that, to be able to see both sides. And rather than just assuming that somebody is wrong and maybe not liking them, rather than saying, hey, I never thought of it that way. That's a really interesting point. Thank you for, pointing that out, or thank you for stating that, or thank you for clarifying that. And again, that's a great way to form a connection, is to realize that maybe somebody that you had thought had, quote unquote, the bad or the wrong point of view is just different than yours, and that's okay. 11, listen. Don't just wait to talk. My father, who is no longer with us, used to say, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And when I was a child, and I thought, that is just a ridiculous thing to say, and I didn't even really know what it meant for a long time. And finally I asked him, I said, Dad, I don't understand what you mean. He said, honey, we're supposed to listen more than we talk. And I thought, oh, which is funny. And it's one of those things that I heard, quite a few times when I was growing up, but it never really resonated until I got older. And sometimes people just want to be heard. They don't want you to fix something. They don't want you to always give your opinion or even your advice. Sometimes they just want you to sit there and just hold space. They just want you to listen. And it's kind of the same as when we do a thought download or a brain dump. Take a piece of paper, write all your thoughts down, put the pen down, read through it, throw it away if you want to, keep it doesn't matter. But there's something about getting those thoughts out of your mind, whether or not it's just verbally or on paper, it does wonders for your soul. So remember, listen. Don't just wait to talk. Don't just stand there or sit there or be present and wait till they're done talking so you can say what you want to say. And I have a friend that does that, and I can tell when she's not listening to me. I can just see it in her eyes that she's not engaging, but she just can't wait to tell me something that she's excited about. And this gal is a really good friend of mine. She's a really good friend of mine. That's just one of those things that she does on occasion, and I'm okay with, because she has other great qualities, and that's just one thing that I've kind of learned to work around. And so I don't tell her a lot of stories, and if I do, I keep it really short. Number 12, the more people you like, the more people that will like you. I think it's really easy to like people who like you. I personally think it's kind of exhausting to try to get people to like you, because some people just won't. Some people don't like your personality, or they don't like your energy, or they don't like your point of view on certain things, whatever that might be. And I think about this a lot. We live on an acreage, so we have animals, and I adore animals. I have a passion for animals. And I love how when I come home at the end of the day, they love to see me. They don't care what I've done all day. They don't care if I've had the best day ever, or if it's been, kind of a, troubling day, or I'm tired. They're happy to see me. They don't care what I'm wearing. They don't care if I have a treat with me. They're just always happy to see somebody. And if I had a stranger with me that they'd never seen before, they would be just as equally happy to see them. So how great would that be if we lived in a world where we were always so happy to see everybody that we came in contact with, the same as the animals are happy to see everybody. Think about that. And the next time you're on a walk, or you're walking through the park and you see an animal, well, I guess probably a dog if you're in a park and they're probably on a leash, walk up to that dog, and their tail's going to start wagging, and they just can't wait for you to pet them, and they'll lick you and smell you. I don't think that that's probably how we need to greet people. I think that we would not be very likable, but I think we should probably have that same energy, and just that same, I guess you just want to have that likability. 13, you must like yourself first. I think when we're trying to form relationships with people and get to know people, we pay a lot of attention to them. When we bring home a baby from the hospital, and any mother knows this, that we could tell you everything about that baby. We could tell you every inch of their little self, their fingernails, their hair, their eyes, everything. And we develop a very strong bond with them, because we really pay close attention to them. We get to know them. We're trying to form a new relationship. We're trying to get to know this little person that we've never met before, and that we are going to know for the rest of our entire lives. So if you think about that, the more attention we pay to a relationship, the more engaged we're going to be. When you start dating, maybe that guy or gal, you can remember exactly what your date had on the first time that you saw him or her, or your first date. Maybe you went out to eat. You remember exactly what they ordered. You went to a movie, you remember exactly what the movie was, because you pay really close attention to detail, because you don't want to forget that. You're trying to get to know that person. From the very beginning, you want to nurture that relationship. And then as time goes on, we kind of take a laid back approach. We get a little lackadaisical with that. Not that that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just what we do. But remember, when you are getting to know somebody, pay close attention to detail. Not even just remembering their names. And I know that sometimes that's kind of tough. Some of us aren't really good at remembering names, but when you ask somebody a question, remember that answer, because you're going to maybe want to reflect back on that at some point. You see that person again and think, hey, tell me about the trip that you guys took to Jamaica, because the last time you talked to them 2 months ago, that's what they were, planning. And a lot of times that person will say, oh my gosh, thank you for remembering, it was great, and things like that. So when you nurture your relationship in the very, very beginning, that forms that instant connection and instant bond. So don't be afraid to ask those difficult questions, and don't, just remember to listen. And like we said, make sure that you're listening. You're not just waiting to talk, and get to know them, get to know their history, their likes, their dislikes, and such. Number 14, tell good stories. Life's experiences leave us with interesting and funny stories. If you're not sure how to be a good storyteller, practice in front of a mirror, the same as you would before speaking in front of a large group. And if you're still not sure how to be a great storyteller, we've attached a link here. Or again, you can just go ahead and Google that, and literally how to be a good storyteller. My brother-in-law, who is no longer with us either, was a fantastic storyteller. And he's funny because he was on the radio for a number of years, which of course would I guess either number one, he was a great storyteller because he was, in broadcast, or he went into broadcast because he was a great storyteller. And he could tell the best jokes ever. And he was just one of those guys that just knew quite a bit about a lot of different things. And how, I don't know. Maybe he read a lot. I remember him reading books now and then, but I don't remember him always having his nose in a book. And my father-in-law was the same way also. So when I think back on him, that's probably one of the things that I miss most about him, is that he was a great storyteller. And I think when somebody's a good storyteller, they use a little bit of animation. They don't talk in a really monotone voice, because that would put us to sleep, and that's not exciting. But a good storyteller, you don't tell all the details of a story. You just kind of get to the point and highlight what was funny or what's kind of going to resonate with somebody else, and leave out all the boring details. And then I think another good way to be a good storyteller is to try to get your audience involved, and only tell stories that you think the people that are with you are going to enjoy. That's just kind of common sense, right? All right. Please leave any comments and feedback, and let me know what you thought of today's episode. And this week, try to be more likable. Thank you. Bye, guys.